turn. Will there be new amendments, new constitution amendments under Trump by Adam Ronsley, October the 20th of 2018? Your turn gives Beast Inside members a chance to weigh in with questions and perspective about, well, I can't read it. It says the process of, yeah, they can. I can't read it. I'm not a Beast member. But speaking of Leslie Hagen Morgan, right? Man, when I say I need to really go out and vote for that man, I need to go out and vote for that man. It says Leslie Hagen Morgan is executive director and co-founder of City of Youth Foster Care. City of Youth is a non-profit organization located in the heart of South LA that was founded in 2004, 14 years ago. That is great. This non-profit is responsible for educating and graduating at-risk youth that have a history of getting kicked out and or failing from the Los Angeles United School District system or other schools. The curriculum Leslie created supports these students with the help of professionals in their community. His program was responsible for graduating 80% of his students a year. That is an amazing rate. But in an area, it's not really a but, it just speaks to the disenfranchisement of our communities, you know what I mean? In an area where you have a larger percentage that doesn't have access to these things that this man's organization is providing, you should get numbers that are high and higher because, you know what I mean, everybody will be motivated. Like, there's no such thing. Yo, I wish I got one of my mans who I know, like, he probably ain't gonna like me saying this about him. I know definitely that man has a child who's getting ready to start school this week, whom that child, by the time he's getting ready to start school for the first time ever, he has had more encounters. His mental tableau, blank slate, his blank slate of a mind, this spongy blank slate of his mind has absorbed more alcohol and marijuana consumption, images and events, and more violent anecdotes, and more and more of the things that he shouldn't have, compared to having been read to or having been taught certain ABCs in preparation, you know what I mean? Don't, like, I'm trying to explain a perspective here, you know what I mean? A child's mind is a sponge. If we have 50 people right now in this room, and the youngest of all those 50 people is a 2-year-old, that 2-year-old is smarter than everybody else in that room, even if you have 5 Albert Einsteins in that room. If you don't get where I'm going with it, I don't know, I can't help you there, you know what I mean? Like, ask somebody who's standing next to you right now to help you there, because if you don't get it, they might get it. That's why they say a child's mind is a blank slate. It has to be fed. Just like your adult's mind has to be fed. It has to be fed. Theirs have to be fed at a higher frequency and greater rate, because they have more of a higher absorption rate than we do. They just don't realize it. The cobwebs of their mind haven't been clouded with memories and information like ours have. We have taken in a lot more. We have processed a lot more. Yes, we have a lot more in our minds. But their minds are so much more wide open that everything they see and everything that comes from you literally is interpreted and stored in there. It has been instances in the last 6-7 years, yo, where I have recalled some memories, some thoughts in my head that I never thought was in there, yo. I'm trying to tell you, like, yeah, I know you have gone through the same thing. You know you've experienced it. You know you have. You know what I mean? But I digress, though, man. I got to think about the 80% graduation rate, and I got to thinking about our communities and how, like, I have seen more parents throw a tablet or phone in front of a child and just let them go. I get it. it keeps you from being a parent. I give it to you. Don't be mad at me if I say it keeps you from being a parent. I am just keeping it 100. You know what I mean? Let me go to the dictionary real quick. Now I'm thinking of the word parents. Let me go to the dictionary real quick. Yeah. The dictionary, according for parents, the first definition is a noun. It says a father or mother, one who begets or who gives birth to and nurtures and raises a child. A relative who plays the role of guardian. And the other similar words, adopter, adoptive friends, begetter, empty nester, father, female parents, filicide, male parents, mother, step parents. And example, definition number 2, an organism, plant or animal from which younger ones are obtained. And number 3, the source of origin of something. And then the second definition as a verb, it only has one meaning. It says provide for and care for during childhood. And I mean, like, when I say that the tablets, the technology is easy to just throw it in front of the child's face, so you wouldn't be a parent, so you wouldn't parent that child. Like, that. It's not just the body. It's not just you clothing them that matters. It's not just you putting food in the belly that matters. I get it. I have been the biggest deadbeat dad for the last 3 years, and I only have a 4-year-old. I know why I said that. Y'all gonna find that out later. You know what I mean? I just hope Fox News dig all up into my shit. Hey, Fox News, I welcome y'all to dig up all up in my shit. Whatever skeletons you are finding in the closet about me, put it out there, man. I'm not, like I said, man, I'm not worried about owning up to shit. All I can tell ya, I ain't never killed nobody, I ain't never raped nobody. I'm just telling ya, I'm just saying. You know, I'm sorry, go ahead and have fun with it. You may be thinking I'm in no position to be a parent or to do nothing, but life, I can't say life robbed me of that, because that would be quite unfair. Life happened, and I haven't been in a position to be able to. That's why I'm begging, I'm praying, I'm hoping that God doesn't plan for me to lose my life over this right now, so I can be that parent. So if I don't practice what I preach, I can be called out on it. Call me out on it. I'm not mad. Like, man, y'all know me. People who don't know me know. Call me out on it. Yeah, I might sound like I'm being defensive, but if you're wrong about the way you're coming at me, you're still wrong. But if you're right, I'll give it to you. You're right. You're right. You're right. You know what I mean? But, you know, President Barack Obama could do that. President Dump Truck, by the way, I don't know. Yo, I have stayed away from cussing this man out for like 45 minutes. I'm sorry. I'm proud of myself, yo. I'm proud of myself. I deserve a Philip Morris poison. Oh man, that was awesome. His programming was responsible for graduating 80% of his students a year. His passion is rooted in community development and education for our youth. He is running for state assembly in the 59th district to see this mission forward. Leslie served as program coordinator for the mayor's gang reduction program, Gang Reduction Youth Development Program, GRYD, from 2014 to 2016. Here, he led a team that helped transition former gang members to working, educated, and positive members of their respective communities. His tireless work to improve communities one person at a time is his driving force to getting underserved areas in our state necessary funding and support for improvement. Leslie partners with other organizations such as John Muir Charter Schools, Solidad Enrichment Program, SEA, to see that people are getting jobs and are able to make a living sustaining a profitable wage. He is a proponent and founder of local community gardens, teaching community beautification and self-sufficiency and diversity. All this work is to enhance people and show communities that they are important. Leslie's passion for the 59th district he was raised in is the main motivation for him running for state assembly. He earned his bachelor's in global studies from University of West Georgia and attended Indiana Wesleyan University and Harvard University for his MA in government. Y'all see why, if it's anybody whose name I've called endorsing for anything, this man right here studied global studies. There is a lot of us African Americans living in this country. Oh my God. About 25 million black folks. Don't be mad at me because I refer to myself as an African American. Okay. There are a lot of Americans of African descent. I not included because I am an African of African descent living in America. You know, I'm just a green card holder. I'm not a citizen. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm proud of my green card status. I ain't mad at it. I can still join the army and die for the country. I can serve without a criminal record. I can serve up to Secretary of State of the United States. That means I can be a senator, congressman, and that on a green card. No, not Secretary of State. Not on a green card. Not on a green card. I have to be a citizen, but natural citizen. You know what I mean? But on a green card, I can join the army. I can die for the country. I can't vote though. I ain't mad at that. I ain't never voted in my life, if you want to. Like I said, I was 13 when I left Africa, and I've never been a citizen in the United States from the vote. But it's important. If I could have voted, trust me, I'd have been voting every year. You know what I mean? It would have been different. I'd have probably had a different job. I probably would have been. You'd have probably known who I was by then. You know what I mean? If I'd have just listened to my pops, you know what I mean? We're gonna get to that later. But still, you know what I mean? I digress. So, but. My man Les over here studied global studies, yo. That's important. There's a lot of us who think, there's a lot of African Americans who think they know what goes on around the world based on what they know about their communities. A lot just don't care about it. I get it. But it's crucial, especially being black in America. There was a time, there's this chapter right here, man, in Soul on Ice about the black man's stake in Vietnam. And it's this part, right? Let me just digress to that real quick, because I'm kind of done with Leslie's article anyway. Actually, there's some issues on his website at lesliehaganmorgan.com. That's LeslieHaganMorgan.com. But there's this part in Soul on Ice, in the chapter titled The Black Man's Take in Vietnam. That means that was the war in Vietnam he was talking about. This was during the 60s, if you remember now. And it's on page 148, and Eldridge Cleaver wrote, he said, what the black man in America must keep constantly in mind is that the doctrine of white supremacy, which is a part of the ideology of the war system the power structure is trying to preserve, lets the black man in for the greatest portion of the suffering and hate which white supremacy has dished out to the non-white people of the world for hundreds of years. Then on the next page he says, black Americans are too easily deceived by a few smiles and friendly gestures, by the passing of a few liberal-sounding laws which are left on the books to rot unenforced, and by the mushy speech-making of a president who is a past master of talking out of the thousand sides of his mouth. Yo, when I say this man went in, I gotta read this book, yo. He wasn't talking about Trump, he was talking about Lyndon Johnson. And he says something interesting, right? This is an awesome ass line. He said, the world of today was fashioned yesterday. If that's not an awesome ass line, I don't know. The world of today was fashioned yesterday. But on Leslie's page, he has an issues tab. And one of the first issue is education. It says, California spends more money on our prison structure than we do on educating our youth. You know, they're trying to update LA's central jail, right? Trying to turn it into mental hospital and jail at the same time. You know, they spend more money on, you know, Tupac said it best. They got money for wars but can't feed the poor. And that, y'all know what I'm talking about, you know. California spends more money on our prison structure than we do on educating our youth. This is an imbalance that focuses on destructive behavior instead of helping our youth accomplish their most important goal. We should put attention and resources into early learning programs, our government-supported instructive framework, and get rid of school fees for every child who needs, for every Californian who needs an education. Yeah. Closing the funding gap. There's a huge imbalance with the access and resources private schools have in wealthy neighborhoods versus schools in low-income neighborhoods. We need to close this funding gap and not to be afraid to invest more in the schools that have been operating with far fewer resources. No matter where a child lives, they should have access to a quality public school that has the resources to connect them with a quality college and a viable career. As state assemblyman, I will fight for an increase in funding for communities that have been historically under-resourced. Invest in early learning. Early educational programs help children prepare for school and excel once they begin the first grade. This is a way to invest in children by helping them gain confidence in learning and social engagement. These programs are also exponential in helping parents manage their workload and parental responsibilities. This is especially helpful for single parents, working families that don't have the luxury or resources to stay home with small children. College for every Californian. I know right now that a lot of people are thinking that a lot of wealthy people who can afford half of this shit that Leslie is talking about are thinking that, oh, this little African don't know what he proposing is socialism. No, it's not. I'm just gonna tell you, no, it's not. If you really think, if you think you've thunk it enough to think, like when I say think, I mean think with a capital Trumpite T-H-I-N-K. Not like he thinks, but if you think, if you swear, you think, you can prove to me that providing college and a K-12 education for citizens of a state in the United States of America, if you think that is a bad thing, that is socialism, you dumb as fuck. I can't help you there, yo. Like, I can't help you there. You know what I mean? But go to lesliehagenmorgan.com, go to the issues page. It's a lot. I can't get into all of that. I'm just saying, man, I can't get into all of that. It is quite a bit. So, yeah. Where was I? There you go. It was something else I just thought about getting into. Let's go. It is so many things that I wanted to just put out there, but it was going to take more than 100 hours, you know, or more than 108 hours, you know. It's just read, man, you know. Just read, y'all. Read, man. Read. That's all I can say, man. Read and vote, y'all. Read and vote. That's all I can say, man. Okay, let me see. Where you at? Where you at? You can't educate us, but no equal opportunity. How white people going to try and educate black people at equal opportunity? They never provided equal opportunity. That's what Bob Marley was talking about. Feel it in the one drop. We're making the one stop. I know I said that I was done with Richard Boston's Color of Law, but hey, Cash App, you guys are like that, yo. If you got Cash App, you know Cash App is a shit. But It's some parts that I don't want to, even though I hope you go pick up that book and read it, you know what I mean? I hope you do. Like, it's an awesome ass book, yo. Like, but chapter 10, titled Suppressed Incomes. A common explanation for de facto segregation is that most black families could not afford to live in predominantly white middle-class communities and still are unable to do so. African-American isolation, the argument goes, reflects their low incomes, not de jure segregation. Racial segregation will persist until more African Americans improve their education and then are able to earn enough to move out of high poverty neighborhoods. The explanation at first seems valid, but we cannot understand the income and wealth gap that persists between African Americans and whites without examining government policies that purposely kept black incomes low throughout most of the 20th century. Once governments implemented these policies, economic differences became self-perpetuating. It is not impossible, but it is rare for Americans, black or white, to have a higher rank in the national income distribution than their parents. Everyone's standard of living may grow from generation to generation, but an individual's relative income, how it compares to the income of others in the present generation, is remarkably similar to how his or her parents' income compared to others in their generation. So an account of de jure residential segregation has to include not only how public policy geographically separated African Americans from whites, but also how federal and state labor market policies with undisguised racial intent depressed African American wages. In addition, some and perhaps many local governments tax African Americans more heavily than whites. First of all, we were making less and they were still taxing us more. Like, if racism doesn't explain that, I don't know what the fuck else does. Like, you cannot teach me about equality. You could have never expected Trump to have any positive policy for minorities in America. The motherfucker is the epitome of racism in America. Like, he is quite literally the epitome of what it means to be fucking racist in America, yo. Like, get that through your skulls right now. This dumb fuck. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. We're only going to do that 3 times that time. He doesn't deserve 7 no more. Every man's got the right to decide his own destiny. And in this struggle there is no partiality. In addition, some and perhaps many local governments taxed African Americans more heavily than whites. The effects of these government actions have compounded because neighborhood segregation itself imposed higher expenses on African Americans than on white families, even if their wages and tax rates had been identical. The result? Smaller disposable incomes and fewer savings for black families, denying them the opportunity to accumulate wealth and contributing to making housing in middle-class communities unaffordable. If governments purposely depress the incomes of African Americans with the result that they were priced out of mainstream housing markets, then these economic policies are also important parts of the architecture of de jure segregation. Yo, if y'all think Trump and them had fucked shit up for black folks in this country, yo, y'all ain't seen nothing yet. Let the Senate, please sit back as a black person in America, do not go vote for the Democratic ticket. Please sit back and not go vote and see how much more damage a Republican-led Senate is capable of. They've already done insurmountable damage, but that damage can be reversed. It's not too late yet. The timing of all this right now, the timing of this 2018 election should not be taken lightly, especially if you're a woman in this country. 2 years from now, in 2020, it will be 100 years since white Americans decided it was time to give all women equal footing as males, as humans in this world. It's only been 100 years, yeah. 50 years before Dr. King was killed. It will be in 2020. Make sure that 2020 coincides with the first female president who will be black, Kamala Harris. Yes, you might be thinking I'm doing this on the racial line, but Hillary Clinton, you should not run for president anymore. And Elizabeth Warren, you pulled a Trump move, and even though you don't have the Trumpian racism in you, you pulled a white Trump move. I get it. That whole Indian line you're trying to go with, man. Listen, you see how sad it is that Obama had to come out and prove his birthship in America, and you had to come out and with some Ancestry.com thing to prove that you actually have Native American blood in you. What does that matter? Why have you hinged on that for so long? And I mean, I get it. That's why this idiot in chief can come at you after that and it will stink, it will burn. Like, why use it? I'm not. That's why I don't think you will make a good president. But I believe Kamala Harris will make a great president. A president along the lines of the Adams and the Jefferson. Yes, I threw Jefferson. The Jefferson was still a good president, even though he was a man of his time, which was being a racist Virginian. He was a man of his time. I get it. I can't hold that against him. But he was still a great president. Louisiana wouldn't have been possible without his sense of diplomacy. You know, I'm just saying, you got to give credit where credit is due, you know what I mean? I'm not conflicted. I'm human. I'm multi-dimensional, you know? If you're trying to label me with something, don't do it. The only label I have is that I am a man, I am a human being, and I am black, and I am Muslim, and I am African. If you want to do all that, do all that. You know what I mean? But I'm human just like you are, you know? You might be white, you might be black, you might be brown, you might be Asian. I can't help that, you can't help that. It was what it is what it is. You go tired for seeing me face. You can't get me out of the race. I'm in your place. And then you draw a black card. Hey, white Americans, you guys drew a bad card. Like Bob Marley said, bad card. You drew a bad card when you voted for Trump because Obama was president. That's the only reason you did it. You knew he wasn't going to do nothing great. Get the fuck out of here. Especially if you're poor and white. If you're rich and white, I get why you voted for him. If you're poor and white, you know, I get it. You drew a bad card. Propaganda spreading all over my name. I'm sorry, man. I digress. Until long after emancipation from slavery, most African Americans were denied access to free labor markets and were unable to save from wages. This denial of access was another badge of slavery that Congress was duty bound to eliminate, not to perpetuate. Following the Civil War and intensifying after Reconstruction, a sharecropping system of indentured servitude perpetuated aspects of the slave system. After food and other living costs were deducted from their earnings, sharecroppers typically owed plantation owners more than their wages due. Local sheriffs enforced this peonage, preventing sharecroppers from seeking work elsewhere by arresting, assaulting, or murdering those who attempted to leave, or by condoning violence perpetuated by owners. In many instances, African Americans were arrested for petty or phony offenses, like vagrancy if they came to town when off work, or when they were unable to pay fines and court fee. Wardens sometimes sold prisoners to plantations, mines, and factories. Douglas Blackmun, in his book Slavery by Another Name, yo, that is another awesome ass book, yo. Ooh, I'm surprised I haven't really mentioned that book. That is another, ooh, slavery by another name. I feel like a mellow moment. What up, Mel? Sorry, let me stop. Douglas Blackman, in his book Slavery by Another Name, estimates that from the end of Reconstruction until World War II, the number enslaved in this way exceeded 100,000. Mines operated by U.S. Steel alone used tens of thousands of imprisoned African Americans. The practice ebbed during World War II, but it wasn't until 1951 that Congress fulfilled its 13th Amendment obligation and explicitly outlawed the practice. Some African Americans managed to escape to the North early in the 20th century, yet others were forcibly prevented or intimidated from doing so. But during World War I, when immigration of unskilled Europeans was sharply curtailed, northern manufacturers sent recruiters south. It was the same concept with slavery right 400 years ago. When their white folks couldn't work on the when their white folks, they were bringing over from Europe to do the work on the plantations, when they couldn't do it, they found the source in the motherland. You know what I mean? Like, they did not directly go to the motherland first. No. American colonists did not go to Africa originally and when they got slaves. They started doing that afterwards when they found out it was going to be a lucrative enterprise. Yes. The trading of human beings were going to be a lucrative. Yes, this is the heart and the mind of the white man, and he has continued over millennia, over generations. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, but I digress. So they used to steal him in the Atlantic first. You know what I mean? They like. I'm just saying, it's the same concept. Like you say, during World War I, when immigration of unskilled Europeans was sharply curtailed, northern recruiters sent recruiters down south. 100 years ago. So what I'm talking about right now, it's not that old. 100 years ago, it's not that old, yo. If you think that was that long ago, your sense of historical understanding is non-existent. It's not even skewed, it's non-existent. You gotta go read up on some shit so you can make it exist in your mind, you know what I mean? I'm sorry, but you got to. Like, you gotta breathe. Whenever you're awake, you got to feed your mind too, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But I digress, though. Nigga Manzo, what's up, man? What's it happen, bro? What it? I tell you, man. Bro, what it? What's it happen, bro? I'm sorry, white America. I'm talking to my fellow African booty scratchers, you know what I mean? I'm sorry. I can't help it, man. I have a global mind, you know what I mean? And it was nurtured by an American education. That's why Shahid Khan, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I'm hoping will be that catalyst, will help send a message. You know what I mean? That's why his parents, who could afford it back in '67, helped him come to the United States to further his education, because there's nothing like an American education. I'm just saying, it's not. You are quite living in the greatest country in the world over the last century. Since the day Teddy Roosevelt said, you gotta speak softly and carry a big stick. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying. That was about 115 or so years ago. And that phrase, by the way, that's why I think Teddy Roosevelt is literally that great of a president. He doesn't get much credit for. He does, but he doesn't get much credit for compared to other presidents like the Jeffersons and the FDRs. FDR came in at an opposite. FDR had no backbone. I'm sorry to say. I'm thinking about a joke that had to do with his polio and the wheelchair, but I'm not gonna go there. You think the way I'm thinking. If you're there, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to disrespect the man. He was a good American president who had 4 terms. I get it. He came in at the time of the Great Depression, and he had smart ideas at that time. I get it. But he made multiple deals with Southern devils because those Southern devils wanted to keep the sharecropping slave system, slavery by another name, going on. And they did. And I mean, I get it. Just like Jefferson had to make deals with Jews, deals with those devils, they did. I get it. You know what I mean? But Teddy though, Teddy was a man. But yeah, I say that about Teddy because Teddy got that line from an African proverb. Speak softly and carry a big stick. If you've ever thought about that line and equated it with Americanism, yes, an American president made it widespread. But that American president got it from the lineage that came from an African proverb. You too rude. What a rat race. Oh, what a rat race. But yeah, Mr. Kondo, you're literally in a position to do, and I hope you get where I'm coming from with it. You could literally help anybody who's minority. You know what it feels like to be a minority in this country, because at some point you did not have the billions that you had now. You had to work your way through. You actually worked hard and earned your shit. You know what I mean? But at the same time though, truth be told, your family could afford it back then, but you still, their American education is their American education. You know, I digress. They frequently travel in disguise, pretending, for example, to be insurance salesmen to avoid capture by sheriffs. During this time, more than 600,000 African Americans left the South, mostly to seek work in the North and Midwest. Historians call this the First Great Migration. World War II then spurred the Second Great Migration from 1940 to 1970, when more than 4 million African Americans made the journey. Thus, most African Americans could not begin to accumulate capital for home purchases until fairly recently. I told ya, 100 years wasn't shit. Thus, most African Americans could not begin to accumulate wealth, capital for home purchases until fairly recently, well after European immigrant groups were able to participate in the wage economy. And when African Americans who left the South entered the northern labor market, federal, state, and local governments collaborated with private employees to ensure that they were paid less and treated worse than whites. Boston! But, alright. Chapter 11, looking forward, looking back. It has a picture right here in the book of St. Louis in 1947, and it says, to construct its gateway arc, the city demolished a downtown African-American neighborhood, displacing residents to a new black area like Ferguson. Stiff-necked fools